Thank you, Senator Ketter. Senator Rhiannon.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. The contributions that we've heard from the two previous senators representing Labor and the Coalition show how enormously out of touch that they are with what is happening in Australia today. There is an enormous shift in public understanding, public opinion about how we should look after our farming land, how we should protect our environment, how we should deliver our energy, and where we can create jobs. The depth of misunderstanding, misrepresentation that we've heard from the two previous speakers is really breathtaking, and once again underlines why this motion is so important. So we can see that yet again we're going to see Labor, Liberal and Nationals voting together in a very backward way on such an important issue. And I acknowledge yet again Senator O'Sullivan from Queensland is here making his interjections in a way that really reinforces how out of touch he is. So much of this motion is about the situation in New South Wales, which, along with Queensland, is to the forefront of this coal rush that is potentially set to destroy so many areas. So it is worth remembering why people are so angry with the Baird Liberal National Government, because this is the government that is coming forward with some shocking coal projects. And while it was the former Labor government that weakened the planning process with the support from the then coalition opposition and approved many of the exploration licences on mines and coal seam gas projects I will deal with, it is now the Baird government that is allowing these mines to go ahead. It is the Baird government that approved the Shenhua Watermark mine on the Liverpool Plains and Maules Creek coal mines. And then there's Wallatu coal mine, where they broke a very clear election promise from 2011, when the then Premier, Barry O'Farrell, gets his photo taken along with a whole number of colleagues saying no about illustrating his opposition and to the Wallatu coal mine. But then they break that promise and give that one approval, and that one's to proceed. Then there's a Warkworth coal mine, a real monster. This is where Rio Tinto's in action, and if it's allowed to go ahead, it would destroy the township of Bulga, but the government's come up with their crazy plan of wanting to move that township. So everything you look at when it comes to coal mine approvals with the Baird government shows what a damaging track that they're on, because on top of that we have the Narrabri gas project, we have fracking just 700 metres from homes in the beautiful Gloucester region. So this government is moving so fast because they are under pressure from coal seam gas companies and coal mining companies that want approval very quickly. They can see the world is turning its back on these dangerous fossil fuels. They want to get in quickly before the price of these fossil fuels drops even further. I said in my opening remarks how out of touch Labor, Liberal and National MPs are, and this has been shown in communities that have been impacted by these forms of mining, particularly shown very clearly around the Tamworth Liverpool Plains area. And a poll that was taken by Lock the Gate earlier this year showed 87% of respondents were concerned about the risks of coal seam gas mining, 83% said landholders should have the right to say no to mining, 66% opposed to any coal mines on the Liverpool Plains. And figures like that, strong opposition, is growing around the country. People are understanding here what's going on. I was fortunate to have the mining portfolio for the Greens when I was in the New South Wales Parliament, and it was hard going in the early 2000s on this issue. Understandably, people were only just starting to be informed. The awareness was only just starting to build about that there was other ways to deliver our energy. There was other ways to ensure that we could have manufacturing based on clean methods. And the continuing concern was demonstrated just about a week ago, again in the Liverpool Plains area, and it's very relevant to this debate, where more than 700 people come together from 87 communities in the northwest to declare a gas field-free area, and it stretched from across northwest New South Wales. 3 million hectares is what these 87 communities covered. Tamworth up to Gunnedah and right up to the Queensland border, and then west to Walgate. Now, that's very impressive for so many people to come together. Indigenous people, farmers, people from Queensland and people from far-flung areas coming together to demonstrate their deep concern. And why was it done so close to Liverpool Plains? Because now the real worry is that this China Shenhua mine could go ahead, and the risk to incredibly rich farming land. Like, if you haven't been there, you really should go. I've spent a lot of time in Western New South Wales, but the richness of this soil was such a pleasure to see. The productivity of this land is really exceptional. In some areas, 40% more than 40% higher productivity than the average across the country. Now, there was one of the farmers who spoke of this, Andrew Pursehouse. His farm would be surrounded by the Chinese-owned Shenhua coal mine if it goes ahead. And he spoke in ways that everybody should hear at this gathering. What he said was that how last time, he spelled it out, last time he had voted for the National Party, he had been a member of the National Party and had voted for Mr Anderson in the 2011 state election. He said this time he will be voting for the independent candidate Peter Draper, and these are his words: "The Nationals are asleep at the wheel and not prepared to stand up against their Liberal colleagues to represent their constituents." Now, those words ring loud around this chamber because that's what we see all the time. Australia would be such—
Order, senators.
We would be such a healthier democracy if the Nationals had the courage to break ranks with their Liberal colleagues and stand up in this place for what they try and make out to farmers and their constituents in rural areas. The inconsistency is massive. But there's another wonderful quote here from Mr Andrew Pursehouse when he says, "As a farmer, we're not against farming, it's just in the wrong spot. You don't put a toilet in the middle of your best farming country." So what is happening on the Liverpool Plains? The pressure is really on. BHP Billiton are looking to mine just 10 kilometres from the Shenhua mine, where if it goes ahead it would be 500 million tonnes of coal that they look to take out. Then Santos has gas exploration across the whole of the Liverpool Plains floodplain. Well, that is such a massive area. Then China Shenhua has its exploration across 190 square kilometres of this prime agricultural land and the ridges that feed where the valuable water resources feed into. Now, just last week I was at Tambar Springs, also on the Liverpool Plains. I've been there many times, listening to the farmers, hearing about their concerns. They are extensive, and the pressure these people are under when they just want to get on and do their job in this wonderful area that really, I mean, you just should not sacrifice productive farming land. Farming land under no circumstances should be mined or developed on. In where the world is now, we cannot afford that. So it was a very informative trip, and there was periodic, when I talked to people for my days there, the issue again came up about ICAC. My colleague, Senator Christine Milne, spoke in great detail with very important contribution on this issue. And I would again like to share with senators this very important finding and comments from the ICAC report, reducing the opportunities and incentives for corruption in the state's management of coal resources. Because while this is referring to what happened under the former Labor government, it again should be seen as warning bells for what is happening now. And the report stated, in preparing this report, the question facing the Commission was not simply how the state's policy and regulatory framework could allow coal exploration licences of great value to be corruptly provided to favoured recipients, but how it could have been so easy to do so. It is inconceivable that in any other portfolio area of government such value could be corruptly transferred from the state to favoured individuals with such relative ease. There it is, how it could have been so easy to do so. We're talking about corruption on a grand scale here. How was it so easy? And my concern, shared by many of the people that I meet when I work in Western New South Wales, is that that continues. But because it's so hard to find out what is going on now, some of the history here, just recent history, is very relevant. And this is we're still on the Liverpool Plains here, and it was back in the mid-2000s when the now disgraced, found to be corrupt, former mining minister Ian MacDonald was riding high in the then Labor government. And he comes up with this, how he pulled this off, we still don't know, of getting huge payouts for exploration licences from coal companies. Now remember, we're just talking about exploration here. And I remember Ian MacDonald so often answering my questions I would ask in the New South Wales Upper House, it's just exploration, there's no guarantee that they will be granted full rights to mine, we've got a robust process. He would always be making those grand statements. But what he did was get huge amounts of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, out of BHP Billiton and out of China Shenhua, just for exploring. Now, the work that my office did at the time, we found that the highest fee for an exploration licence prior to what Mr MacDonald pulled off had been $10 million. But here we have BHP Billiton paying $125 million for an exploration licence at Karuna on the Liverpool Plains, and China Shenhua $300 million. Now, that's certainly widely suggested why Mr MacDonald got away with so much, because he was he found this way to pull in big money for the then New South Wales Labor government. But what was the deal done to achieve that? Like, these companies are not giving money, so much money, and there's actually more money that we've found out China Shenhua handed over, without there being some arrangements.
Like the donation you might have got.
So what we find here is that the additional money that China Shenhua also guaranteed is that they would invest $170 million for transport infrastructure and an additional $200 million if the mining lease was eventually granted. So that's a huge amount of money when supposedly China Shenhua is not guaranteed that it's going to get a coal mine. So what you see then is how China Shenhua conducts itself once the exploration starts, is that it really makes a farce of the then planning process that we have in New South Wales for coal mining. Now, remember, the planning process that we have is something that has been signed off by the joint vote of Liberal, Labor and Nationals, just solidly voting time and time again to weaken the laws around mining issues and planning in New South Wales. Now, why I say it's a farce is because so quickly China Shenhua is out there taking action that, to any casual observer, and particularly the people in Liverpool Plains, every time I'm there, these are the stories they relate, convinces people that China Shenhua is absolutely confident that they've got it in the bag, that exploration is just the first stage of full-scale approval. And things that China Shenhua was doing was buying up huge amounts of prime agricultural land, buying up water licences. Also, that they were, as we know, China Shenhua is well known for operating its own railways, ports and power plants. Now, I'm not sure where the money's coming from, but right now, again, it was told to me, and I saw some of it when I was there recently, that so much of this upgrade of infrastructure around Gunnedah and those railway lines is proceeding. Now, I acknowledge that, and the Greens are great backers of public transport, but when money is put in by, if money is being already put in by China Shenhua, that it again raises real concerns. Why are they pushing ahead in putting in hundreds of millions of dollars when they haven't got final approval for the mine? And again, we then need to look at Mr McDonald's record. What was agreed to when all this money was handed over? He made 5 work-related trips to China, one in 2005, one in 2007, 3 between January 2008 and July 2009. Now, there's very little details about what happened at that time. And I think this is where, if the Liberal Nationals were sincere about wanting to protect this area, and local member Barnaby Joyce is regularly out there talking up his commitment to this area. But what was the agreement? I mean, making all those trips, because what the locals report, that the local talk is, that there was agreements around fast-tracking the process, that they would be free to buy up farmland, free to buy up water licences, and if push comes to shove and they really get locked down, where they will be able to mine is on the ridges surrounding this beautiful floodplain of rich agricultural land. So many unanswered questions that we should get to the bottom of. And I do congratulate former Lower House member Tony Windsor for the work that he's done in this area, because what we've seen just coming into this election, this New South Wales state election, that clearly the Bear government were under pressure, have been under pressure, because it looked like a decision could be made on China's Shenhua literally on the eve of the election. So what does the Federal Environment Minister, Mr Hunt, do? He steps in with the statement that he's going to stop the clock on the project and that they will use the water trigger there. Now, Tony Windsor has set out some very clear questions that this government should answer on how it is conducting this water trigger. And one of the big ones, something that the Greens called for regularly, and I know the community groups are calling for, is that when you start examining the impact of a mine in an area, you need to look at the cumulative impacts, and clearly that is essential on the Liverpool Plains. In my opening remarks, I talked about the pressure this area is on from Santos, from BHP Billiton, from China's Shenhua. You can't just look at one mine. So is that part of how they're conducting themselves? Mr Windsor also asked, what exactly is Mr Hunt asking the Independent Expert Scientific Committee to review? And then considering that under the water trigger, the significance of an action has to be considered with other developments, past, present and reasonably foreseeable, will they be looking at the cumulative impacts? Like these things need to go hand in hand together. Another question Mr Windsor asked, will the IESC carry out the bioregional assessment of the impact of the proposed mine on the Namoi catchment as originally discussed? Now, they're on the public record, and this government should be answering those. And I also wanted to pay tribute to my colleague in the New South Wales State Parliament, Jeremy Buckingham, who has revealed some interesting developments with Labor just recently, where they actually did return $2,200 to Santos, money given to the Labor Party. But what hasn't been returned is $90,000 given to federal Labor. I mean, as Mr Buckingham has pointed out, I mean, what a contradiction. And he's called on that money to be returned, and I know some of the locals are saying it's money that should be put to good use. Because we are talking about massive donations here. Since 1998, the Labor Party have received about $4 million in donations from the resource and energy sector. The Liberal and National parties have received about $9.5 million from the resource sector. These figures are over the past 15 years. Santos alone has donated $1.3 million, AGL over $500,000. And in 2013 to 14, donations from mining companies to the federal coalition increased by 350% from the previous year. Now, that was in an election year, but it is significant that such a huge jump occurred, and it goes to the point that Senator Christine Milne made is just what is the links here between the companies giving the money and the political party that gains office, and then how they weaken the laws to make it easier for these companies to make a profit. This motion should be supported. It goes to the very heart of the type of Australia we need to build, free of corruption and with clean energy, plentiful jobs and clean manufacturing. Thank you, Acting Deputy.